Racist judge insults defendant moments later. He's arrested by the man he just mocked. The courtroom smelled of old wood and broken promises. In that suffocating silence, a black man named Marcus stood, his heart pounding like a war drum, as Judge Harlan's venomous words sliced through the air. "You people always think you can dodge justice." The judge spat, his voice dripping with disdain, eyes narrowing at Marcus as if he were less than human. The crowd gasped, a collective flinch rippling through the packed benches. But Marcus held his ground, his jaw tight, his gaze burning with a fire that refused to be extinguished. This wasn't just a trial, it was a battlefield. Marcus, a mechanic with calloused hands and a life built on quiet dignity, faced charges of theft he swore he didn't commit. The evidence was flimsy, a corner store owner's shaky testimony about a blurry figure in a hoodie, but Harlan had already made up his mind. To him, Marcus was a stereotype, a scapegoat for a town itching to point fingers. The judge's gavel hovered like a guillotine, ready to seal Marcus's fate. "You're wasting my time," Harlan sneered, leaning forward. "People like you belong behind bars." The words landed like a punch, and Marcus's mother, seated in the back, stifled a sob. But Marcus wasn't alone in this fight. Among the onlookers sat Deputy Sheriff James Carter, a man who'd seen too many injustices in his 20 years on the force. James, also black, had risen through the ranks despite the whispers and sideways glances from colleagues. He sat quietly, his uniform crisp, his eyes locked on Harlan. The judge's words weren't just an attack on Marcus, they were an assault on every person who'd ever been judged by their skin. James's fingers tightened around the badge in his pocket, a symbol of the oath he'd taken to uphold justice, no matter who stood in the way. The trial dragged on, each minute a fresh wound. Harlan's bias was a living thing, coiling around the courtroom, choking out fairness. He interrupted Marcus's public defender, mocked the man's testimony, and dismissed every objection with a wave of his hand. "I've seen enough of your kind to know how this ends," he muttered, loud enough for the front row to hear. The crowd stirred, some nodding in shameful agreement, others shifting uncomfortably. Marcus, though, stood taller, his voice steady as he spoke. "I'm not your kind. I'm Marcus Thompson, and I'm innocent." His words were a spark, igniting murmurs of doubt among the jurors. Then came the turning point. As Harlan prepared to deliver his verdict, a commotion erupted at the back of the room. Two federal agents in dark suits pushed through the doors, their faces grim. The crowd parted, and James stood, his badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. He stepped forward, his voice calm but unyielding. "Judge Harlan, you're under arrest for corruption and abuse of power." The courtroom froze. Harlan's face drained of color, his gavel slipping from his hand. The agents flanked him, but it was James who cuffed him, his eyes locking with the judge's in a moment of poetic justice. The man who'd mocked Marcus now stood powerless before him. Gasps echoed as the truth unraveled. For months, James had worked with federal investigators, uncovering Harlan's trail of bribes and rigged trials, targeting defendants of color to pad his reputation. The evidence was ironclad: bank records, secret emails, and recorded conversations where Harlan boasted about keeping the streets clean. Marcus's case had been the final straw, the one that pushed James to act. As Harlan was led away, his earlier words hung like a ghost. "You people." Now, they were his undoing. Marcus's charges were dropped that day, the truth shining through the cracks of a broken system. He walked out of the courthouse into the evening sun, his mother's arms around him, tears of relief staining her cheeks. The crowd outside buzzed, some cheering, others silent, grappling with the weight of what they'd witnessed. James lingered at the steps, watching Marcus embrace his freedom. Their eyes met, a nod of mutual respect passing between them. This wasn't just a victory for Marcus, it was a reckoning. The town would talk about this day for years, the day a judge's prejudice was exposed, and a man he'd mocked became his judge in a different kind of court. Marcus's story wasn't just about surviving injustice. It was about the courage to stand tall, the power of truth, and the quiet strength of those who fight for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against them. In that courtroom, humanity won not through vengeance, but through the stubborn, unyielding belief that justice, though delayed, could still prevail. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.